Well, thank you, Brian. That was an excellent introduction. And I guess I'd just like to thank everyone for making this a priority today. We certainly believe that this program is a priority, and it's been one that has gotten a lot of attention over recent years. I'm going to really just provide a recap of what Brian actually kind of gave you a snapshot of the Denali Commission's role to date, and then turn it over to Barbara Triplett, who I think is 3 weeks on board as the new program manager at AEA. Really the message that we'd like to convey is the innovative state-federal partnership that this program has taken on over the last couple of years and into the future. Just by way of background, for those of you that are not familiar with the Commission, we are a federal agency. And by the way, I think I've met just about everyone here, but it's true that it's my name too. It's not a mistake. So born and raised in Alaska, and just serendipity ended up at the Denali Commission as well. And happy to be here. The primary focus of the Commission has always been on energy, primarily with an emphasis on the challenges of rural Alaska. The two, what we call legacy energy program areas, are bulk fuel facility upgrades and replacements, as well as rural power system upgrades. In 2005, we were provided with congressional direction to diversify our energy portfolio to include renewable and alternative options as part of the project scenarios that we would fund. And so that was in the form of a congressional direction, and our commissioners took that very seriously. Back about the same time, there was a partnership discussion with the AEA and some seed funding to match state funds to develop what is today the Renewable Energy Program. The Denali Commission about 2 years ago hired me into this position, and we had a bit of carryover funds at that time. The Renewable Energy Program was off and running and had a decent amount of funding comparable to the amount we had. And our commissioners asked that we go ahead and take a look at what are the gaps in that process. How can we better leverage our small amount of resources for renewable alternative, and that was when they decided we should take a look at emerging technologies. Also at the time, Senator Lisa McGuire had a draft standalone piece of legislation that established this renewable energy program. And we took a look at that legislation. That year, it didn't appear that it was actually going to move forward. So it was a good time for us to maybe do some ground testing with regard to process. So basically what we did is we took what was established in the piece of draft legislation and we pretended that it already existed. So we had about $4 million at the time. And by the way, we tossed numbers out there because we had invested in a couple of pilot projects to date beforehand. So this $4 million was really what was solicited as part of this process. So these pilot projects, before our original solicitation, what we're calling Ground Zero, included the HVDC project that you're going to hear a presentation about, very exciting potential technology, and the Eagle and River Hydrokinetic project. So there are two phases, which I think is similar to what you see in the request for applications that AEA has on the street now. We did something similar to that. I think I would characterize it as a little bit more loosely organized. Certainly there's a statute in place today, and Barbara's going to talk about a little bit more about that. So the process today, I think, is a little bit more structured than what we had, but really we were just ground testing whether or not there was an interest and what the universe might be for potential emerging energy technologies. So there was an advisory committee established in the legislation. We comprised that committee as it was structured in the bill. And that committee really provided a review and recommended the projects that we ultimately funded through what we're calling Round Zero. And the 5 years that we've been talking about, I believe that continues to be the goal. So, you know, when folks think about research and they think about, you know, maybe things that happen at the university, maybe paper studies, things like that, it's an important distinction with this program in that we're really talking about applied research. We're talking about projects that are not in research and development. They are ready to be tested through some type of demonstration on the ground, and the hope would be, as a result of this project, it would then be potentially fundable through maybe the Renewable Energy Program or another infrastructure grant program. We received over 50 submissions for the first phase. That was reduced down to 15. There were 8 projects recommended. Actually, I think Jason corrected me. There were 9 projects recommended, and then adding the 2 that we had previously funded, we now have 11 projects. The Denali Commission at the time partnered with the Alaska Center for Energy and Power to actually conduct what we call grant management on our behalf. We have a number of projects that the AEA provides such service for, and the existing process is just that, a grant from the Denali Commission to AEA. But those of you that are in the room, you know very well that the Denali Commission actually partnered with ACEP, and the ACEP is actually your grantor, I guess you could say. And so just by way of protocol, we do have a bit of a distinction there in terms of how the grants are being managed. The other piece that you're going to be hearing a little bit more about later after the presentations is this data collection and reporting, and the importance to understanding that the data collection and reporting is really that goal of the program that will allow certain technologies to be replicated and getting that information out. So we have, and some of that requires actual monitoring equipment and things that maybe, you know, at first blush you would not have thought of. So we have a very strong relationship with ACEP and an actual grant with ACEP to provide data collection and reporting separate to the projects that were funded under this first round. And I believe that will continue to be a discussion as the program evolves. So in terms of lessons learned, one of the things that we probably wouldn't recommend doing again, I don't think anyone expected we'd receive the number of applications or proposals that we had gotten, and we had a really difficult time narrowing it down. So in our wit and wisdom to spread our funding further, we actually asked some of the finalists to reduce their budgets, perhaps find other cost share match, maybe partner with other entities that had suggested similar technology. And the feedback that I've heard about that has been that it wasn't very productive and it was a little bit disruptive. So that would be a lesson that we learned, that maybe midstream it's not a good idea to ask folks to revise their scopes in such a manner. Better to fully fund projects as they were originally proposed. We've talked some about the data collection and reporting. That continues to be an issue that will evolve and discuss over time. And then, you know, we haven't really identified priority technologies, and I think that that's something that we may want to consider maybe as an overarching policy discussion. For example, storage. Energy storage technologies such as the Premium Power project that we funded through Kotzebue Electric. You're not going to hear a presentation about that today because it's still in procurement. But as we talk about storage, is that potentially going to have a widespread return on investment greater than maybe some of the other technologies that we would be considering? So with that, the Denali Commission's future role It's important to recognize that we're turning the baton over to AEA. They own this program now. So while we're hearing about the projects that received funding in round 0, it's important to recognize that AEA really is the program manager for the process that's on the streets right now. So the Denali Commission has a seat on the advisory committee and will continue to be involved. We also have a draft work plan that I expect will be open for public comment sometime in the next 60 days or so. And it does include $2.4 million for funding the program whatever the next round might be. So we'll continue to consider funding for the program, again, for pending appropriations as well. So we'll see how that goes. We'll obviously continue our federal and state partnerships. You know, the commission has a relationship with NREL, and we'll continue to work with Department of Energy, maybe USDA or other federal agencies to help identify potential funding opportunities, you know, for projects that we're all working on. And then, as we've always done, the commission is interested in, you know, maybe stepping back as other agencies that are appropriate might take the baton. But if there are gaps and we can help to address those, that's what we'll do. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Barbara. Like I said, I think she's 3 weeks on, and so far so good from my perspective. We're happy to invite her to step up to the plate and take this program on. So thank you.